Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding literacy teacher educator on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. And this is the Get Literate podcast. On this podcast, we explore the power of leading literate lives. We talk all things books and reading and notebooks and writing. We lean into our curiosity and creativity and embrace a spirit of lifelong learning to cultivate a life we love. Now, grab a notebook and your TBR list and let's get literate.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, and I'm thrilled to share 3 more books with you today. Now, for many years, I've followed Allie Edwards' advice, and I've chosen a one-word theme to guide each of my years. Have you done this? I am such a fan of Allie and her work and her scrapbooking and all of her stickers and planner pages. And when I heard her talk about this idea and why it was so important, I just fell hook, line, and sinker and have been doing it ever since. Some of my one-word themes have been savor, love, breathe, connection, create, and many, many more. But then 2020 hit. And my one word that I originally chose for 2020 just didn't fit anymore. So I changed it. And then a little bit further down the line, that word didn't fit 2020 anymore. And so I changed it again. I kept changing the word to fit what I needed in that moment. And I realized that I really liked that flexibility more than I liked sticking to a one-word theme for 365 days because the world was changing. I was changing. And I really liked having the freedom and the flexibility and the permission to change my one word as I saw fit. Now, I've extended those monthly themes in my actual life to my reading life too. Because if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that my reading life impacts my actual life, and my actual life certainly impacts my reading life too. I mean, that's why we're here listening to this podcast together. So I know if I want to bring a new theme, a new intention, a new idea, a new way of living into my actual life, I start with books. I always do. And you know what? It works every time. So this month, my monthly theme, my personal monthly theme, as well as the theme for my reading life and for my entire Get Literate Patreon community is gather. Now, this word was actually suggested by a Get Literate patron. Thank you so much, Dawn. And I think it's perfect for this time of the year. We've got the holidays coming up. We've got Thanksgiving, we have Friendsgiving, we have lots of holiday events, no matter what holiday we are celebrating. And since we are at least out of the depths of COVID, we are gathering again. Maybe still on Zoom, but definitely in person too. Now, inside of my Patreon community, I shared an entire book calendar that has a book recommendation on the theme of gathering for each day of the month. But today, I'm sharing 3 of them lifted up from the calendar that I think you should read, along with a sneak peek into our book club pick on the theme of gathering too. So here we go. I've got one nonfiction book to begin with. I've got a cookbook that I think you need to read. And then I end with a fiction novel, as well as a fictional sneak peek into our Get Literate monthly book club selection. So here we go. Up first is The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, How We Meet and Why It Matters. Now, on a theme of gathering, I thought it would be helpful to begin with a touchstone text of sorts, an anchor text, literally a Bible of gathering. And I love this book because it takes such a different approach. A lot of other books I've read on the topic of gathering or get-togethers or holiday festivities is all about the doing, the checklist, the planning, the execution, the cleaning, the baking, the celebrating, all of the things that go into creating a gathering and making it special. But Priya Parker takes a much different approach, and it's one that I appreciated. Instead, she says we need to start with the purpose of why we're gathering in the first place and what we want our outcome to be. So this goes far beyond holiday gatherings and thinks about gathering in general, both in our personal and our professional lives. And she asks us to think about why we gather: to solve problems, to celebrate, to mourn, to mark transitions in our lives, to help make decisions, to show our strength, to honor and acknowledge the people who are there, right? To welcome, to say goodbye, to build our competencies, to build our skills. Whatever the reason is, Priya Parker thinks that we need to commit to a purpose so that our gathering actually serves us and serves us well. So it doesn't become a checklist of things to accomplish and potentially stress about, but it becomes something that actually makes our life better. And we all know right now, we are in the midst of lots of meetings. It could be meetings for work, for college, for school, for Zoom meetings, for in-person meetings. So many times I have thought, this could have been done in an email, right? Have you thought that too? I certainly have a lot over the pandemic. But when we really think about why we gather and when we could benefit from gathering, those are the times we tend not to gather. We gather for all of those things that are just checklists to do. But do we gather to support a friend, to help rebuild a life, to think tank and solve a problem? Many times we don't. That's when we revert to email or text or phone calls, right? We need to gather so that it means something, right? Not just gathering around something to do, like read a book in book club or meet people or train for a new topic, right? Because when we gather around something we do, that sets the agenda. In a birthday party, you sing and eat cake and open presents. At a dinner party, you've got lots of small talk and hors d'oeuvres and then dinner. And if you've got a baby shower, you've got lots of cute colors and fun games, and of course, the baby gifts. But why? Why do we do those things? And why do we do them in that order? And why do we just keep doing them? Because that's the way we've always done it. This book challenges our assumptions about gathering and what it means. It really does. And it doesn't just talk about gathering, on a personal level, but it's applicable to our personal lives. It's applicable to our work lives. It's applicable to anything. And I love the trajectory that she takes us on, from close your doors, don't be a chill host, create a temporary alternative world, never start a funeral with logistics, keep your best self out of my gathering, cause good controversy, and accept that there is an end. Those are literally the chapters of the book, not chapters you expect to see on a book about gathering. But I think this book is perfect for the theme, especially for this time of the year. We're heading into the holiday season. We probably have some gatherings on our heart and on our mind and on our to-do list and on our calendars. And there's lots of practical tips woven throughout the book. So it is the big picture. Why are we gathering and how is it going to serve us well? But then there are little things to make our gatherings better, like a conversational menu, questions that you ask at each course of a dinner party. She talks about hello and goodbye rituals and how the space determines the energy and the flow of a gathering and should be considered too. So there's big ideas and there's little ideas, and I'm sure you're going to find something to take away for your own gatherings moving into this season. So that's The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. Now, once we've gathered, right, what do you eat? Lots of gatherings usually focus on food, whether that's snacks at a football party, it's cake at a birthday party, or a dinner at a family event. Food brings us together. And that's why I want to share this next book with you. It's called Feed These People by Jen Hatmaker. Slam dunk recipes for your crew. Now, you might already know Jen Hatmaker. She's the host of the For the Love podcast, and she's written lots of other books. Simple and Free, Fierce, Free, and Full of Fire, Of Mess and Moxie, 7 Days of Christmas, and her book titled the same as her podcast, For the Love. Now, just from the titles I have shared, you are probably getting a little sense of who Jen Hatmaker is. And she's been getting a lot of buzz around this book. If you've gone online, if you've been in the book world, you likely see it. And yes, it's for the recipes that look delicious, but honestly, it's mainly for Jen's personality in it. Jen is funny. She is real. And my goodness, she has lots of yummy food in store for you in this cookbook. And I just want to read the introduction of it because it sets the tone for the kind of experience you're going to have as you're reading this. And yes, I know we don't typically read cookbooks, but there are so many anecdotes and fun facts throughout this book that that's exactly what I did. I literally read it from left to right as I would an actual nonfiction book because there was just so much in it. And now I'll go back and I'll pick and choose my recipes that I'll share with you in just a moment. But here's the introduction. There's a picture of Jen and it says, "Look, sometimes life is weird and a girl named Jen Hatmaker ends up writing a cookbook. Is she a chef? She isn't. Does she have credentials? She doesn't. Did she go to culinary school? She didn't. Can she put down a double burger with mushrooms and onions and blue cheese sauce? She can, reader." I love that. I love that she openly acknowledges, yeah, I may not have the formal background, but boy, do I know how to bring the food. And that is part of what makes a gathering so special. Now, I wanted to share the table of contents with you to convince you that this really is a cookbook unlike any other cookbook that you have read. So here we go. Chapter 1, Food for Breakfast or Lunch So You Can Drink. Yes, that's the title. I fell in love with the gingerbread spice Dutch baby and the peach corn cakes. Chapter 2, Food for Noshing, Appetizer and Party Food. She's got great recipes like dinner dip hummus, honey lemon ricotta with toasted hazelnuts. Oh, that sounds so good. And homemade mozzarella sticks. Chapter 3 is Food for Spoons. I flagged her butternut squash ginger carrot soup and her old-fashioned beans and cornbread because boy, I can make a fantastic gluten-free cornbread. Chapter 4, Food that goes in carbs. So I've got here pulled pork sliders with spicy slaw and the one I cannot wait to try, fried avocado tacos. Chapter 5, Food for your picky spouse or spawn. This one made me laugh. I love this one. There are recipes for potato chips, for bacon and raspberry grilled cheese with potato chips in it, I might add. Chapter 6 is Food when you have no more dams to give. Easy things like the pasta bake with house cream sauce or the risotto with whatever you have. Now, that's not all of the chapters. There's also Food for Hippies, food when you want to seem fancy, food that goes next to your food, and food that comes after your food. Although it is worth noting that there's only one dessert in this book that Jen gives us, and that is the creme brulee. But boy, it looks good. So, I mean, after listening to that, how could you not get this book to charm up your next gathering? I'm gluten-free, I'm dairy-free, and I am still walking away with all of these recipes. Now, that was Feed These People by Jen Hatmaker. So we've got the book that tells us why we're gathering. We've got a book that tells us what we should eat while we are gathering. And now we've got a book that is a fiction novel on the power of gathering. The book I want to share with you last is All the Lonely People by Mike Gale. Now, it might initially seem like this book is not a good fit for this category, right? All the lonely people in a theme about gathering, but it is. It really, really is. This book is about Hubert Bird. And Hubert is a widower who makes it seem like his life is full of fun and adventure and friends when he talks to his daughter in his weekly phone calls, but it is not. And in fact, his life is full of loneliness, depression, and fear, I guess, too. Hopelessness is probably the word. So on one of his weekly calls, his daughter announces that she's coming for a visit because she just wants to see all this fun and adventure and friendship that Hubert has. But as we know, that is not true. And Hubert realizes that he needs to make his fake life come true before his daughter finds out the truth about how he's really living. And so that's what he sets out to do in this book. Throughout that journey he takes us on, we learn all about Hubert. We learn about his great love, Rose. We learn about their strengths. We learn about their struggles. And there were struggles. There were family struggles. There was racism. Hubert is a Black immigrant from Jamaica and goes through a lot of struggle. We hear about their struggles with drug addiction and, of course, loneliness. Now, this book, and Mike Gale, is not afraid to touch on the not so pretty stuff. He looks it right in the eye, in fact. But when we do, beautiful things start to happen. People, especially the character in this book, they start to come together in unexpected ways, in unique ways. Hubert starts to build new connections and actually forge those friendships. And those connections and friendships can be forged over our stories, our actual lives. And we can grow in ways that matter by gathering together when we are in search of a purpose, as long as we're open to it. I cried at the end of this book. I actually cried quite mightily, right? And not only does it help you think about yourself, your own family, your own friendships, and the true need that we have for gathering, but it also will have you think about the time that we have left and what we actually do with it. How does that matter? And what does it mean? It really, really is a must read, whether you are filling your life with gatherings or just want a very reflective, introspective, beautiful book. Then All the Lonely People by Mike Gale is for you. Now, I mentioned that I had a little bonus book at the end, and I do. I've already shared 3 books for gathering. We started off with The Art of Gathering. We moved into Feed These People, and we ended with All the Lonely People by Mike Gale. But I want to give you a little bonus book because I've chosen another book off of my Get Literate book calendar for our book club. And actually, I didn't choose it, but the members of the Get Literate community chose it instead. And that book is called Rules for Visiting by Jessica Francis Kane. Now, this book is definitely one that I cannot wait to dive into because it starts off very real, right? And it actually tells what's happening in someone's heart and how the story is coming to be. So let me just read you that first paragraph. Midway through my 40th year, I reached a point where the balance of the past and all it contained seemed to outweigh the future. My mind so full of things said and not said, done and undone, I no longer understood how to move forward. I was tipped backward and wobbly. My balance was off, and this made sense to me. A life seemed so long. I couldn't see how anyone proceeded under the accumulated weight of it. Whew, how is that for a powerful start? That's Rules for Visiting by Jessica Francis Kane. And if that sounds like something that you want to dive into with us, I'd love to see you inside our Patreon community. You can find out more at getliterate.co. We've got book lists and book clubs and First Page Fridays, live events, and so much more. So there you have it. 3 books with a bonus that were different, yet complemented each other to focus on the ways that we might gather together this holiday season. And that's the connection to actual life that I want you to think about as a result of this episode. Just take a couple of minutes to think. What does gathering mean to you? How will you gather with others during this holiday season? And as Priya would like us to ask, why? Who will you connect with? I'd love to see you make one small plan to gather together in a way that works for you and your beliefs this holiday season. Whether that's gathering together with a friend you haven't seen in a while, if that's planning something special for friends and family, or whatever gathering means to you, let yourself experience it. Plan it. Let yourself indulge a bit, set work aside, and just dive into gathering together to see what it brings. I think if you read All the Lonely People by Mike Gale, you experience the changes that happen when you gather together. And while it may be easy to sit in your basement and go Zoom call after Zoom call, yes, I am talking about myself, that gathering is so important and is exactly why I think it's the perfect theme for our reading lives this month. So I hope you grab one. And of course, I hope you let me know what you think. You can find me on social media at Affinito Lit, and I'd love to have you over in our podcast Facebook page too. You can search for Get Literate in Facebook groups, and you can join us there to keep the conversations going. Thanks for listening and happy reading, everyone.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. You'll also find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life there, like book lists, notebooking ideas, personalized book recommendations, and an invitation to join my Get Literate Patreon community. Each month, we take a deep dive into one bookish theme and work to bring it to life in our own lives. You'll get bonus episodes, book calendars, live book club and notebooking sessions, special events, and much, much more. You can find more about the Get Literate Patreon community at getliterate.co. And one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or just take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and no bookish community too. Thanks for listening.